Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes, can hear you.
Yep, we sure
Yep.
can.
Awesome, thank you. There we go. So I think everyone has probably seen these forms a couple times now. And I just want to go over the how to fill them out. And then for what they look like, how to fill them out. And then I really want to open it up to how are you going to use them? Because I think even amongst agents that I've talked to, there's different ways of doing it correctly. And I want to make sure that we'll look at them. Hold on. So does everyone have just a copy of what they look like? Is there anyone that needs these?
Are these the same ones that went out with the yellow? Okay, I see it now. Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay. Thought it was really boring to scroll through them all. So I went down to just the yellows. The other pages stayed the same. And please, this is, to the best of my ability, this is an interactive. I really want to make sure everyone has a chance to talk. Let's see it. On the listing contract, the yellow part is what's new. And I just filled it out how I think I'm going to be utilizing it. It does not have to be how you are utilizing it. So the compensation can still be paid out as a broker commission, broker to broker, with the seller's permission. Or it can be paid out as a concession to the buyer so that the buyer can pay their own agent. Both ways are correct. They're both going to be different paperwork. So if we are offering a commission, this would still look very similar to how it would look now. I don't plan on charging a retainer fee, but I will tell you there are agents in our office that do. Our normal, typical, totally negotiable commission, I'm just going to work with really basic numbers on this. This is just a sample. Would be a 6% commission. And I think we better start putting a dollar amount in here so that sellers know that you're getting paid. In the past, I've always put 0 because I want it to be the percentage. Plus the $4.99. That is all the same as what it is now on the forms. Yellow lines from lines 122 to 124 is where it really changes. And this is great. The seller's paying a commission. But if seller agrees to pay buyer broker's compensation directly to buyer broker, then seller's obligation to pay broker's compensation shall be reduced. This could have been worded better by the forms committee. Cooperating broker compensation is still a valid way of doing it. We cannot advertise it on the MLS, but you can still pay a commission. Okay. What you can advertise on the MLS is a concession. So if the seller agrees to pay buyer's broker's compensation directly to buyer broker, that means it's never coming through the listing agent's hands, never coming through our brokerage. Then it's going to be reduced. that 6% is going to be reduced by the amount that is being paid directly to the buyer broker. Back to that form.
Lynn, I have a quick question on that. So in the past, and maybe I misunderstood, didn't the commissions for the buyers, let's say we have the listing, didn't the full commission go through our brokerage and then we paid the buy side? Are you saying now the seller through their title company pays it directly to the buy and it doesn't go through us?
That's an option.
Okay.
Either way is valid, but that's an option.
Okay, got it.
So if the buyer's agent on the purchase agreement puts in a commission, seller's contribution to buyer's broker's compensation, seller agrees to pay buyer broker's compensation at closing. That's the seller paying the buyer brokerage directly. It doesn't go through our office. I think this is a nuance on just changing the wording. This would be as close as we can to business as normal. But if the agent's asking for 2.7 here, let's say they're only asking for 1. Whatever, maybe they're asking for 3. I capped it off over here at 2.7. So let's say the buyer's agent wants 3. I've agreed 2.7 of it'll come out of my 6%. But that little bit extra, the seller's agreeing to pay outside of that. Confusing as mud, huh? So this is where I'm concerned personally when I show houses. I might not be as good as some of you at finding where a buyer's agent might be a seller's agent might be advertising a commission. I'm going to be more apt to write it in here than maybe go find it on every website out there.
I think that that's going to cause a lot of back and forth.
Yes,
if it
you are going to
doesn't
be on your phone a lot.
Yeah.
As a buyer's agent, you need the commission in writing, or you have nothing to go back on if they don't pay it.
Or we'll just see a counter if they didn't check. It's 2 tenths, 3 tenths off, and then just counter
Yep.
offer.
It's
Okay.
gonna go back, it's gonna be confusing a little bit. I just wanna make sure we cover everything. I really just pulled out the pages we needed to talk about. The buyer rep contract, here again, this part is pretty much how we've always had it. The only thing that really changes is it uses the word total commission. It talks about the total commission because some might be from the listing brokerage and some might be from the seller, some might be from the buyer. Okay. I'm probably still not going to charge a retainer fee. I usually put 2.7, but if I'm working rural, it might be 2.5. If I know I'm going to be putting a lot of miles on my car, it might be 3. That is negotiable between you and the buyer. We should have a dollar amount in here. I don't think 2.7 looks the same as a dollar amount. So if you're showing a $300,000 price range, you probably want to have at least 8,000 in there. Make sense? Because your client seeing 2.7, they don't understand that they're committing to about 8,000. And then the $499 or whatever your team charges, or if it's a VA, it's going to be waived. That stays the same. So really, it's just that this is the total commission and it might be coming in pieces. And there again, it should match this if you're going to use this section. You don't have to use this section if you have it in writing that the buyer or the selling broker is paying the buyer's brokerage a commission. This is the form that they've created for that. But it can be an email, it can be anything that's in writing. So let's say I'm the listing broker for 123 Main Street and Mr. Smith is the seller. It's listed with Keller Williams Integrity Realty, and I have to identify who the buyer is. Let's say it's the other way around and I'm representing the buyer. I have to give them my buyer's name before I submit an offer. This is not part of the offer. This is before you submit the offer. So Mrs. Doe is going to be the buyer. And I want to know that compensation, provided the transaction between seller and buyer closes, seller's broker agrees to pay buyer's broker as buyer's broker's compensation. Now I'd get my 2.7. So back to the purchase agreement, this would be 0. This is only if the seller is paying the buyer's broker directly. If it's broker to broker, it's still broker to broker, and that is 0. Okay. This is the line that bothers me. As broker, this is the part that bothers me. This contract can be modified or canceled only in writing, signed by seller's broker and buyer's broker. These are not agent signatures. These are broker signatures. Okay. So you can't start signing these on your own. I'm waiting to get a little closer for a little more clarification on that. If you have a stack of these sitting out at your listing, or you're just passing them out freely, and all of a sudden your seller changes their mind or changes their terms on what they want to pay out, there is no one-sided canceling on this. Once that other broker has this in their hands, that's what our office is committed to paying their office. So I am not real comfortable with that, but that's how the form's written. And this is the other form. So this is if lines 122 or 124 are used on the purchase agreement. And remember, that's okay, this is where the listing contract says it could be that 6% could be reduced by up to 2.7 if they put as specified on line, okay, yep, up above, if it's in the purchase agreement. So here, if I had in the purchase agreement, the 2.7, now I have to follow up with an amendment to the listing contract. Okay, this would be an amendment to the listing contract. You could use this form as an addendum if you wanted to not have commission, but just have concessions. But let's start with talking about it as an amendment for the property at 123 Main Street. Seller's concessions. Seller may offer concessions to buyer, which may include contributions to buyer's broker's compensation. Seller shall offer compensation to cooperating brokers. If shall, the compensation to cooperating brokers shall be as follows. This is where you could put in the commission, because maybe they started off with a concession, maybe they started off with a commission. This is where you're going to be able to change that. This is where they might say they authorize or do not authorize broker to disclose seller's willingness to offer concessions. You might have a seller that on their net sheet, they agreed to 2.7, maybe they agreed to 3%, but they don't want to tell the buyer's agent that. They want the buyer's agent to work for it. You want your commission? Great. You got to work for it. You got to put it in the purchase agreement. I'm not telling you what I was thinking about paying you. you're gonna have to show me how strong you can negotiate. Okay? So there's gonna be several different ways, and maybe it'll be pieces. Maybe you have a seller that says, you know what, I'll pay out 2%. If they want more than that, they're gonna have to ask for it. And we might give it to them if they're paying a high, you know, if they've negotiated a high enough price on the house. If not, no. Literally, I would recommend printing out some of these forms and practicing. When I got into the industry, I sold my husband many houses. I think he's going to be selling many houses in the next couple of weeks. Because he's a normal person who's gonna ask really good questions, and I want to be prepared for those types of questions.
Lynn, do you have this as a handout that we could print out?
The way I've drafted it up like this,
Yes.
yeah, I can,
Okay,
it's just a PDF on my computer, so Colleen, I could easily send it to you.
that'd be great. Thank you.
I'll be honest, when I looked at the forms without anything filled in, it was a little more confusing to me. I had to fill something in. I'm really visual. The other thing I really want to make sure everyone looks at, and I put it as a Facebook page on on the Rockstar page. This settlement fact, first off, these forms are national. It's not just from Minnesota, so it's good information, but it's not real precise. This I thought was really easy reading. And this is just the NAR settlement facts. You know what, we probably don't even, we might want to discuss it, but we probably don't even care why or how we got here. We really need to know where we're at now. The who is covered, you are covered. There are a lot of smaller brokerages, mid-sized brokerages. If they sold under 2 billion, they were exempt from the lawsuit. If they sold more than 2 billion, they had to either join the class action or settle on their own. There are still some out there that are just dangling. That's probably not the biggest. This is where I found the biggest change. So what MLS policies have changed? They've got it pretty clearly written out. If you run into people that, hey, you know what? Mr. Anderson at ABC Realty is showing houses without us having to sign something first. We might have to turn into the police, and that's not my personality. But we need to even up this playing field. And very honestly, I sat in a room with other brokers and top agents in the industry, and I listened to some of the smaller brokers say this is not state statute. They are not requiring their agents to do it. Those need to be ethics complaints. They really do. I don't like it, but everyone's got to be on a even playing field. Effective date, offers of compensation. This is where I'm getting the most questions. And these are pretty easy to just click and go. You know, buyer brokers may have to work for free. No. I've already sat in on one ethics hearing where an agent did not show a home because the commission wasn't enough to fulfill the buyer rep contract. As long as your client is making that direction and you as the agent are not, you are fine. If the client says, I don't have the money to pay my agent, it has to come from the seller's side and they want representation. They've hired you as their agent. If you are following your client's direction, you are fine. If you are choosing not to show a house because you're not advertising a commission, that is an ethics violation. So as long as it's client derived. I went through and read all these. It goes into like where they can be advertised. Colleen, you had a really good Facebook post and I was hoping it would get more engagement. Because I'm looking for ideas also. You know, where can we advertise it? We can put it on, and nothing that touches the MLS, nothing that comes from broker reciprocity, nothing on Showing Solutions. Can they, offers of compensation still be arbitrated? Yes, as long as they were in writing. They did not change that. So you've got to get something in writing, and please don't tell me it's a text message. You already lost your case if it's a text message. If you have a phone call with let's say you're the listing agent or the buyer's agent, and someone calls and says, hey, Forrest, what's the compensation on your listing in Moron? They picked on Moron. Let's say Cambridge. You have one in Cambridge. What is the commission payout, or what is your seller doing for the one in Cambridge? And you have a telephone conversation with me, and you tell me, I don't know, what are they paying out, Forrest?
2.5
Okay, is that a concession or a commission?
commission.
Would you please send that to me and write it?
Sure, I'll shoot you a text right now.
Oh, I really need an email. My broker won't take a text.
I'm pretty busy right now.
I'll follow up and send you one.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm gonna draft, thank you, that was great. I'm gonna draft that email, and hey, Forrest, I plan on showing your house up in, 123 Main Street in Cambridge. Per our conversation, the payout's 2.5. Can you please respond back that that is accurate? I'm gonna put that in my opportunity. Those folders on the left side, you guys would be shocked how much I put in there. But I'd put that in there. I want to know that I'm being paid. Now, would it be better if I got that form from their broker? The one I don't even like? Yes. But make sure you have something.
I have a question, Lynn.
Yeah.
I have a signed listing from a couple weeks ago, and I have another listing appointment on Thursday. And so I will have the current documents for the listing.
Same
So
thing.
so once this updates on the 17th, the best action would just be to update to the 17th paperwork, or is this paperwork available now?
Not available now.
Okay,
That's why they've got the word draft across it everywhere.
right.
And they say it's going to be available on the 17th. I think it's going to be.
Okay.
Concerned the DOJ hasn't approved it yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The DOJ is, Department of Justice is really leaning towards not allowing commissions to be advertised anywhere. They
Wow.
want it to be 100% concessions. Okay. I'm kind of black and white. I would like it if it was one way or the other.
Mhm.
So,
but to answer that question, I would just
Every
continue forward
side.
with the listing paperwork we have now, and then once the new stuff is released, if they're not active, I would sign, once that new paperwork is released, I would just use the new, almost like re-sign them. Is that what I should do?
I think it's gonna be a re-sign.
Okay,
I'm waiting for a little clarification on some of this too.
okay,
I'm making sure that the people I'm working with, I'm having really transparent, thorough conversations that this is coming and this is what's gonna happen. We signed one last week though, and I kind of stumbled. It's an old guy. He doesn't want to sign once, let alone twice.
Lynn, I have a question. This is gonna happen the same with the buyers, right? So we presenting the what we have right now until we have the new forms.
Well, yes, but the buyer rep contract. This is all that changed, is that they added the word total. The association's telling us we really should not have to re-sign anything on the buyer rep contract.
Okay.
Okay. It was very minimal, more of a housekeeping term than a change of terms. The listing contract's pretty significant. I'd kind of like to open up discussion. stop sharing. Well,
Lynn, I have a question.
yes,
If you're saying to go kind of black and white, either compensation or commission, would that mean that the seller's side would be classified compensation then too, or still say commission?
you know what, both are right now. I can't, I don't feel like I can micromanage your business to tell you which way to do it.
Okay,
I think our team, and Greg's on here, our team is going to have a decision on which way we present. That is our preference. But we are going to make sure we educate our sellers to all options so that they're the ones making the final decision. But we all know how we present and our preference. Most sellers are going to go with that.
okay. But sorry, I was going more on the, what you were stating about the DOJ.
Yeah, Greg,
It-
feel free to chime in, but the DOJ has not made a final ruling yet.
Right,
Okay,
right. And it's just social media chatter, but the chatter, like Lynn says, is that the DOJ really doesn't want commissions advertised anywhere. They might not, they really don't want commissions at all. So they don't want cooperating commissions at all.
I really would like to, Colleen made an awesome post on Facebook and no one really dove into it enough. But advertising, you can put concession on your agent remarks. You can put concession on your buyer's remarks. You cannot tell the buyer what to do with those concessions. So if you advertise, say 2.7 concessions, the buyer could say, great, those are my closing costs. You cannot designate how they spend them. I'm a little concerned as a buyer's agent personally. I would rather have the seller pay a commission, so I know that that's my commission. But they can advertise the word concession.
So how does that work if you double side it then?
That's a really good question. It depends how you write it up.
I suppose.
You are still allowed to make a double-sided commission. But if your seller's offering a concession, you'd have to write it into the purchase agreement that as a buyer's side, you get the concession.
Hmm.
Plus the commission, so it could be a combination of the two. Talked to Todd today and it does sound like EXP for Real is not paying out any commissions. They decided as a brokerage to make it black and white. They are strictly going to be concessions. Couple of builders out there that I've talked to recently are kind of going the same direction.
See that.
Yeah, because they want to be able to advertise it. You can put it on a sign rider, you can put it on a table tent in the house, you can email it out to every showing that requests. You cannot have it be an automatic response from showing time. You cannot put comments in the agent remarks to see your personal website for compensation information. You can't. Yeah, Cartos keeps saying you can't leave 3 carrots on the table and take a picture of it.
Use the word concession. Can you say like seller is willing to pay a 2.7 concession?
Yes, but you can't say what they're gonna what the buyer will spend it on.
Yeah, okay.
So you can't.
So what's going to happen there with some buyers that might surprise the seller, so I guess I prep them for it, is the buyer's going to take that 2.7 concession, like Lynn says, and say, well, I need closing costs, so that covers that. And then they're also going to ask for a concession for to pay their broker. So the seller may be looking at offers where it's more of a concession than they originally thought.
But it's the same net sheet. I mean, really, We're just changing the
We're
word
just-
commission
right.
to concession.
Yeah, yeah. And moving it from a 6% to whatever percent plus a concession.
Well,
So,
on that sheet, you'd still have your concession for commission, and then you'd also have, if they were asking for closing costs,
Yeah, yeah.
that the seller could see that.
they will, and hold on here. I'm gonna go back to the form because it really clearly on the purchase agreement says that this, which is in addition to any seller contribution to buyer's closing costs paid at closing. This amount is in addition to the listing broker's offer of cooperating compensation, if any. So like where Greg Hartos thinks this is gonna come into play as a buy or a listing might come out and say that they're going to agree to pay a 1.5% commission. But if the buyer's agent wants more than that, they're gonna have to ask for it. And so you might have a combination of it coming together, and you might have a buyer who says, you know what, I can pay 1%. I can't pay 2.7%. The seller's offering 2, I'll pay the 0.7.
So your closing check could really be coming from 3 different places.
Totally.
Hmm, hmm.
And I'll be honest, it's gonna be really hard to review files for this because I'm not a math whiz. And the other big thing is a buyer's agent cannot get paid more than what's on their buyer rep contract. You cannot put a range. You cannot say 2 to 4%. You have to pick a number, and that is your number. If you get into a situation where a seller is offering more or a builder maybe is offering a bonus, Fannie and Freddie used to offer bonuses. The market changes. You're gonna have to go back and amend your buyer rep contract. Okay? I attended a broker event and we begged the forms committee to change the compensation disclosure / amendment, so it would be an all-in-one form. Please feel free to give that suggestion to the forms committee. I think we'd all appreciate it. Okay, this is
So
kind of
Lynn
like-
and Greg, this is Misty. So honestly, we may all just end up in the exact same space as we always were 6 months ago. It's just gonna take more phone calls and more forms just to get to the exact same place.
Yeah,
Until the industry works it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But by that time they'll change it on us again.
right. Yeah, there'll be another update.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so the advertising of this is does anyone have any, like, y'all are really creative. Do you have any crazy ideas that you think are crazy that you think you better to discuss? Please bring them forward. Don't have me find something out because someone turns you in. And as a group at the office, if you see one of our other agents maybe going a little bit outside the box too crazy, please bring it to my attention. We're not in kindergarten. It's not tattling. We're preventing someone from having a violation.
Something that we talked about at our Highland meeting on Monday was the idea of putting more information on the agent's outgoing voicemail so that the information is already there. If a buyer's agent were to call, let's say Meg Highland, it would already be on her voicemail. And we also talked about potentially opening up another Google phone number to potentially direct people to that could be updated regularly with that information.
I like that idea. I was thinking more of doing like the call tree where, we would maybe have to get a number and, push 2 to hear commissions, but having an actual separate number, I actually like that better.
I actually brought that up as a suggestion, and depending on the number of listings your team or your agent has, it might be practical, it might not be.
Mhm.
All right, Danny just typed, I just assume the most common way to promote those commissions would be broker websites, right? We already have those. I think that's gonna be a utilized way. I was told our Keller Williams website would have a spot for it as the office, like the Keller Williams Roseville website would have a spot for it. Haven't seen it yet, don't know. And as a buyer's agent, I'm not as good as you all are with your Google searches. I got a lot of really little brokerages up by me. I'm not gonna be able to find all their little personal websites. You'd think you could, but I bet I don't.
Yeah, to me, the challenge isn't gonna be where to put those, it's gonna be how to get people to find where you put those.
Yeah. All right. The forms, I think we're all getting a pretty good grasp of them. The where to advertise it, I think we're getting a good grasp of. And everyone has to really think through how they want to present them to their clients, both as sellers and buyers. I did a buyer rep forms last night, and the young buyer, her mom was there, and she's like, so does that mean my daughter has to pay this? And it's like, well, it means she's committing to pay it if the seller won't, but she doesn't have to look at houses that the seller is not willing to pay it. And I think if we explain to our sellers that it's going to limit their buyer pool, they want a big buyer pool.
Mhm.
They want, they want the good agents that have buyer rep contracts and pre-approved buyers to show their houses. But you might work in a price range where maybe that's not as important. Maybe those buyers in a higher price point are very capable of paying their agent. And that's okay too. I think we're actually gonna see buyers agents that are good at presenting this. I think we're gonna see them get paid higher. HUD houses have always paid up to a 6% commission, and there was nothing preventing you from putting 6% in there as the buyer's agent. So we definitely have agents in our office right now that get paid 3%, whether their client kicks it in or the seller kicks it in.
You think we're gonna see more buyers agents getting paid in a way other than final closing percentage? Retainer, non-refundable retainer fees, per showing
So-
charges, things like that?
Something that the office over in Maple Grove is actually doing as a class now, I heard. The $4.99 that we have as our office-based commission.
Mhm.
They've got some agents over there charging that up front and crediting it to the buyer at closing. It gets paid directly to the brokerage. It can't get paid directly to the agent. But the brokerage is collecting the $4.99 up front, releasing that to the agent, and then the agent's crediting it to the client at closing.
You
What's
said,
the purpose of
We
that?
have one team here that does something similar to that for listings to help offset the photography costs.
when you say release to the agent, though, the office releases minus company dollar and,
Yeah, I'm not sure how they break that out,
yeah, okay.
but I don't know. Nick just had his first interview with someone asked if we would allow an agent to be paid hourly.
Hmm.
If the client wanted to pay him hourly. The
What's the answer?
answer is it's legal as long as you can bill it out hourly. So like an attorney, I took a 15-minute call, I unlocked a lockbox, I did this, I did that. It would be a lot of tracking on the agent's side.
Yeah, with all money's having to come through the brokerage, who actually bills the client?
The agent would have to have those records.
But the
We
money-
have agents right
Money would
now,
have to go
we
through the
have,
MCA office, though.
we have agents right now that invoice their clients,
Okay.
mostly in commercial. And the invoice is paid directly to the brokerage and it runs through the same as a commission.
Okay.
So we might see some different models. Back to the forms though. Buyer rep contract, just make sure you're really clear in that this is their obligation to pay the commission, whether it's through commission being offered by the seller or concession being negotiated on the purchase agreement, or the buyer's checkbook themselves. That is the commission they are agreeing to. It can be amended if need be. I am up by me, 2.5 is pretty common, and I'm still gonna put 2.7, so I may have to do some amendments to bring it down to 2.5. I don't really plan on charging my buyers that difference. Some agents maybe will charge the difference. You get into Wisconsin, you get a lot of 2.0s and 2.4s. 2.24. So you're gonna have to be amending these forms to match your final. Okay? The form, the in writing form from the broker to the other agents. Please give me a little grace. We got 2 weeks left and I really want to know firmly how that plays out before I start signing those. It seems a little Wild West to me. I still like my little squiggly box CRV code thing. And I am having Sean come up with some riders that I think are just gonna say buyer's agent with the CRV. What is it really a CRV? Am I
It's a
saying
QR code,
QR code? What is the oh, the CRV? that's-
certificate of resale value.
Okay, the QR, see, I'm not techie at all, but I know how to aim my phone at that. And I'm gonna have some table tent ones made for in the house. Because I want to be able to change the answers on the back end to reflect what my listings are. I don't want to have to rebuy them every time. I lose my train of thought. The MCAs, too many acronyms. The MCA, they are going to be instructed to read your buyer rep contract. And if you only have 2.5 and someone pays out 2.7, they have to return the money. They can't pay it to you. Okay. No matter what you put into command, they can only do it what's on the forms. I would expect that your closers are going to need a copy of these. Right now, I don't send my buyer rep forms to my closer, but starting in August, anything that's closing, they better have it. Because that's the only way it's going to get put on the settlement statement. Has anyone else talked to their closer about it? Anyone know what Britt's doing over at Northwest?
We talked with, Kayla at Great North, and they're gonna just be asking for a lot more, either the full listing contract and amendments or buyer rep, basically everything that we have for what the compensation is gonna be on top of whatever's in the purchase agreement.
Okay. I'm almost expecting title companies to come up with their own form where a seller has to sign. Nothing's happened yet. I'm just kind of, they're so good at covering their own back ends with disclosures and paperwork. I kind of think they should. All right, I don't have too much else.
The question on buyer rep, you said there was just the one change on it. We're gonna have to have a conversation with buyers about compensation, whether that's a commission or a concession. And let's say that the buyer doesn't want to look at houses that the seller's not offering compensation of some sort.
We do not have a
Is there a
form for
place where
that.
they tell us that?
No, we do not have a form for that. I think the brokerage really should have one drafted, but
Yeah,
waiting till the DOJ comes through.
sure.
So in this limbo land, I would say I would handwrite it on my buyer rep contract.
Okay.
That per buyer's direction, homes only offering X amount of something
to be shown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Colleen, I see a question.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask, what's the wording of that? So right on the contract.
Oh.
So, okay.
We can write things on those contracts. Greg and I just did a listing contract where our seller definitely has two very helpful, interested parties, and he's older and he wants everything sent to them. We had him sign that. We are not breaking our fiduciary duties on confidentiality just because they seem to be overly helpful. If you've got a buyer that doesn't want to see anything that's not offering compensation, I'd get that in writing.
Of course, it's going to pop up on Zillow and they're going to want to see it right away anyhow.
All right, that Zillow form that everyone got to see, it does not apply, it's not valid in any way, sense, or form in Minnesota. It does not meet the NAR requirement. NAR requires that the commission be disclosed and how it's being compensated be taken care of. If you read that NAR fact sheet, Zillow saying that you will work for free is not valid. So get good at telling people that. But that's wonderful. Let them use it in California, but we are not using it in Minnesota. You will also hear that this is not state statute, and that is correct. It's not a federal law. It's not a state law. It is a ethics violation through NAR only. And there are definitely brokers and agents that are going to view it that way and not change their business practice at all. It's going to be the first time I'm going to actively be looking for people to turn in. Because if we play by the rules, and everyone I hope does in our office, then the only way it works is if everyone else does.
NAR is the only place you can turn them in though. DOC
doesn't care.
doesn't care. Yeah, okay.
Commerce Department doesn't care.
So if they're not NAR members, there's really no one to turn them into.
No one to turn them into at all. If they're not a realtor, and they're just some real estate agent, it's nothing. We're in for change.
See, I don't think things are changing that much. I think we're just gonna have a lot more to explain because they've confused it.
Yeah. I
think buyers and sellers are both gonna hear compensation through concession or commission and go, well, what's the difference? And I'm not sure I have a great answer.
So Molly, what is your team going to do? Any decision if you're going to be compensation or concession?
I do not know the answer to that question at this moment.
Okay. Isaac, what's your team leaning towards?
I'd parrot that same thing. We're not sure at this moment yet.
Okay. Misty.
We're still kind of in confusion land, but we kind of foresee things staying a little bit the same, where our buyers may be asking for both 2.7 for our agent and potentially 3% concessions for closing costs. So we may be asking for up to 6%, kind of like we always have.
Exactly.
Just going back to that same thing, it's just so many more forms to get land in the same place.
Okay, but when you're the listing agent, are you going to be advertising concessions
Gotcha.
in the MLS, or are you going to be advertising commissions everywhere else? You have to
I
both.
don't think I don't think we've decided on that one. We honestly don't know what kind of language to use where and how to communicate it best yet.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
Danny, what about you and Forrest?
We haven't had a conversation about that yet, but it's definitely helping push that, just the conversation here right now.
Yeah, I would almost lean towards commission. What I would worry about, especially maybe newer agents or people that don't understand it, is offer a concession mess up the net sheet from someone's offer asking for a concession and a commission, then the seller being very upset that they pay more at closing than they initially thought.
TJ, how does this all translate? I know not every word translates the same. Maybe it's
For
better.
the, I don't know, I have my concerns too. Because when you use in Spanish, commission, concession, my concern is how the buyer agents are gonna manage this. So I don't know, I'm still trying to figure it out, how to put it out there and explain it to the clients so they can see the difference. Because, yeah, I just thinking then there's gonna be worse for buyers because they're gonna end up paying more. Probably, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out this too.
Okay. We have a lot of agents in this office that have a lot of Spanish speaking clients. So I just want to be a little bit sensitive that just having my daughter-in-law, I know things don't always translate exactly how I think they do. And I want to be sensitive enough to recognize that I might have to change how I present a little bit when speaking to some of these agents and when I get their client calls.
Yeah, I'm getting a meeting with somebody in the forums because I need to understand well too. Because a lot of people calls me and ask me questions and I don't have an answer right now because it is not clear to me yet how to present it in Spanish. And even in English, it's kind of confusing. So now imagine translating this in for us seems the same, commission, concessions, but we need to know how to explain it. And yeah, I just have a meeting with somebody in the forums because I want to ask directly the way that I understand it in Spanish. So to see if we are giving the message correctly to the clients. So I will let you know if I find it out.
If you feel that you do get valid information from that meeting, it might be really nice, and I'll sit in on it, but I won't understand y'all when you speak Spanish. It might be really good to have a Zoom with our Spanish speaking agents.
I think it's gonna be something important for our office. We have a lot of agents that speak Spanish, and I think it's important to put the face outside in the right way. Yeah.
Yep. Don't I 100% agree. All right. As you get creative,
social media groups, so Facebook groups that I'm on with other realtors, English speakers are having a huge problem with compensation, commission, and concession too. So it's going to be everybody.
And as you read the new forms, when I went to the broker meeting, and I'll be honest, I still don't see it. When they use the capital B versus a lowercase b for the word broker, the capital B means the brokerage. The lowercase b means the agent. Now, how the heck were we all supposed to know that? So I really did go take this class at the State Association twice. Because the first time I didn't grasp enough of it. Take time to read the NAR facts, even if you just skim through it, just knowing where they are. And so if you have a question, you know where to go back and look, could be really important. There are definitely going to be some complaints made. When you talk to the two guys, Ryan and John at the association, the two attorneys, they are expecting arbitrations to tick up tremendously. Make sure you have it in writing. I'm a little concerned that agents are going to put out there in social media, oh, I always pay out a commission, I always pay out 2.7, or I always pay out this or that, and then they're going to get a listing and not do it. And another agent's going to have printed out that Facebook post saying, hey, I always pay it out. So be careful what you're out there saying.
I think more and more we have to stop saying I do anything. It's always our buyers and sellers doing things.
Yep. And if it really comes down that I have to sign all these, boy, you're gonna have to send them to me with electronic signatures with a little math sheet attached to it. Something. I had one I had to sign the other day for an off-market property and none of the math made sense. Turned out the agent was missing an amendment in the file. The purchase price had changed. I was right. Nothing added up right. So it takes time for me to go through these and sign them. Okie dokies. I think that's it. Thank you very, very much. I think we're probably gonna keep having little get-togethers, but I would like to, is anyone here on the ALC? No? Okay, I'd like to do it with the ALC because they're our agent of the week for questions. I'd like to do some role playing with them. Forrest is. Thank you, Danny. All right. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Lynn.
you, Lynn.